journalist Lara Logan recently interviewed Dr. Keith Rose, who has worked in clandestine U.S. intelligence operations for 3 decades and is now going public because he is concerned for his country. He said that within 2 weeks of America's hasty exit from Afghanistan, the head of the CIA met in secret with all of America's enemies.
During that week and a half before, there was an open source meeting, or people knew about a meeting of the director of Central Intelligence at the time, Burns, was down there meeting with other officials and members of the Taliban. But I've talked to several people that have intimate knowledge of that meeting, and they're telling me, or they're asking the question, why were there 2 senior Chinese intel officials at that meeting? Why was Siraj Haqqani, who at the time we had a $10 million bounty from the State Department on him at that meeting? And the other thing is there was a senior official or senior officer from the IRGC, the Iranian Republican Guard, who was a Quds Force commander that we're very familiar with from Iraq. He's a very, very competent officer. He was there. They didn't even use CIA personnel for security. They were so concerned, from what I'm hearing, about the people they were meeting with, that they used one of our tier 1 groups for security, and they kept them on the outside. They weren't allowed to listen in or anything.
And after the U.S. government abandoned trusted personnel and billions of dollars worth of weapons in Afghanistan, the communist Chinese secured it within 2 weeks.
Bagram Airfield, when we left there first, went completely black. It was dark. The people that were there said they landed two large Chinese transport planes landed with troops and secured that area.
70,000 jihadis have graduated from Afghan terrorist training camps in just this year alone.
These are actual terrorist training madrasas?
Right. Madrasas that train people on small arms tactics, on bomb making, on basic intelligence tradecraft. And we know for a fact, because we have several assets in all over Afghanistan, that they graduated this year, was their largest graduating class from all the madrasas. And these are for what they would call jihadis, guys that were going to go and fight the holy war. And they said they had over 70,000 graduates.
And not only did the U.S. leave behind weapons, it left behind biometric data and the kit required to make official U.S. passports.
The Afghans have the ability through their passport office to create biometric passports. Not only did we leave behind biometric equipment, but the intelligence services are responsible for setting up the passport office, let's just say documentation stamps and things like that. And there's been several questions asked, did we leave certain pieces of equipment that would be used in a passport office to authenticate passports behind? And my understanding, and from what I've been discovering, is we did.
Western nations are under attack from traitors within their own governments. The people of Ireland and the UK are beginning to stand up. In response, combat journalist Michael Yawn recently explained what typically happens within the native population when a nation is invaded.
When there is an actual invasion from an outside force, the minorities or people who feel that they've been downtrodden, almost in every single case will join with the invader. In fact, I can't think of one where they did not. That concerns me greatly with the United States, because we are clearly being invaded, and it's clearly going to intensify, for instance, with the Chinese. And many people will join the Chinese, including a lot of white people, by the way, will join up with them and already are, including our government, which has joined with Israel and China and Ukraine, right, basically globalists, right, and not us. And so the police are going to have to pick a side. Right now they are picking a side. They're picking the anti-British side, or the anti-Irish side, and that's a losing battle. That means you end up dying. As a police, you'll end up dying. Your police stations will be burned down, or you'll run to other countries because you didn't have the guts, like our Border Patrol, to stand up. If the invaders win, you're going to die. You're going to die or you're going to leave at some point and abandon everything that you've ever had in those countries. If the Patriots win, you will never be forgotten. Your children will not be forgotten for your cowardice, for not standing up. Bottom line. And cowards are natural traitors.
Reporting for InfoWars, this is Greg Reese. Over the past few years, illegal immigrants have been given U.S. bank debit cards from the United Nations, reportedly $1.6 billion.
Does that go into your bank account?
¿A dónde va? ¿Tienes una cuenta? ¿Una tarjeta? Sí. ¿Tienes?
Oh, let me see. I'm standing outside the United Nations office in Tapachula, Mexico. One of the things that is happening here and all along the migrant trail is that the United Nations is handing out cash and debit cards and rental assistance and movement assistance to immigrants to help sustain them on their road to El Norte.
Catholic Charities have been managing the illegal invasion at the southern border, spending millions while profiting billions. And the local police admit that they are under their direction.
The officers, well, we're all here under the direction of Catholic Charities.
Richard Poiso of Chicago reported that these illegals are getting Social Security cards within 4 months of crossing the southern border.
So yesterday, I ran into somebody that I haven't seen in a while. He's been here for about 5 months in the United States, 6 months, something like that. And he says, hey, I'm looking for work. And I said, well, I can't hire you, man. I gotta hire like legitimate people or whatever. And he was like, no, I'm legitimate now. And he's broken English, kind of bits and pieces together, and he pulls his ID and stuff out of his pocket. And he says, I got Social Security card now, and I got worker's ID and permit for working, everything all legit. Stamp, city stamping, specialized Social Security envelope. This dude got on the buses from Texas to Chicago, got in process here in Chicago, found an apartment building within the first week, an efficiency apartment, moved into the apartment building, and then has been working cash jobs under the table for the last 4 months until recently got his worker's permit. And now he's working for a roofing company, but they're laid off right now. They're laid off right now, and he's looking for work. We have people literally trying to do everything that have been waiting for years that still don't have what this guy has in 4 months. That's how fucked up our government is. That's how much they care about the illegal migrants more than they care about their own people. The problem is, and this is fucked up for me to say this, some Americans have done this to themselves because they're fucking lazy and they won't get off their ass to go out and actually get the stuff done that they're trying to get done, that they need to be getting done. Like this guy came here knowing that he could lose his life, lose everything. He gets here. Now he's a worker. Within 4 months, done all his paperwork, went to all his appointments and stuff, and figured out the system, and is hustling. It's really, really, really messed up that they would do this for people that are not even from this country. They didn't help build this country. They didn't help contribute to this country, and they just walk right in like they do and just get handed IDs, Social Security card, just get them on the payroll and stuff. Let's just do it for them. Let's get them set, but not take care of our own people that are on the streets. It's messed up.
Joe Biden opposes the SAVE Act, which would require proof of citizenship to vote for him this November. Without having to provide proof of citizenship, a Social Security card and a driver's license will certainly suffice. Voter fraud may not be necessary if 30 million UN migrants can vote. Reporting for InfoWars, this is Greg Reese. Israel has murdered an estimated 30,000 civilians, including thousands of children, and they rape their prisoners.
The war in Gaza has one of the lowest ratios of combatants to non-combatants casualties in the history of urban warfare. Practically none. You want to know why? Because Israel got the civilians out of harm's way, something people said we could never do, but we did it.
Like submissive zombies, the U.S. Congress stood and applauded the infamous war criminal, Netanyahu, after he bragged about being a humanitarian, and continued their compliance as he sold the U.S. war with Iran.
Which country ultimately stands in the way of Iran's maniacal plans to impose radical Islam on the world? And the answer is clear. It's America. In Beirut, they killed 241 U.S. servicemen. In Africa, they bombed American embassies. In Iraq, they supplied explosives to maim and kill thousands of American soldiers. Iran understands that to truly challenge America, it must first conquer the Middle East. And for this, it uses its many proxies, including the Houthis, Hezbollah, and Hamas. Yet in the heart of the Middle East, standing in Iran's way, is one proud pro-American democracy, my country, the State of Israel.
Much of Congress has been bribed by AIPAC or blackmailed on Epstein Island, but the rest are religiously on board.
There have been two nations created to glorify God, Israel and the United States of America. I will bless both, I will honor both, I will do all I can to stand and defend them.
The U.S. has an intrinsic interest in making sure that Israel not only receives our best prayers and offers of success, but our armaments, our money.
I wouldn't label the Baptist or the evangelical community as extreme because I feel like they're following the Scripture and what the Scripture says about Israel. Those who bless Israel will be blessed. I mean, they take it literal, and I'm one of those people.
Their faith is in their prophecy. And so even though the State of Israel did not exist prior to the United Nations creating it in 1948, they insist that reality match their beliefs. And for many American Christians, it will always be Israel first.
We must vote for politicians who stand for Israel.
Our nation has been blessed because we have blessed Israel, but as we as a nation turn against Israel, then we receive repercussions.
And America has had a long record. Now, I think the dividing line in what we'll look for with politicians is where they are on the two-state solution. If a politician says, well, Palestinians need to have land from Israel, sorry, you have just stood against Israel, and God's not going to bless you.
Many of these fanatics not only expect Armageddon, they want to see it and help bring it about. Many believe that the mention of the words Gog and Magog twice in the Bible is to be interpreted as a final world war between Israel and its enemies, who religious leaders have decided are Russia and Iran.
This is called the Gog-Magog War. It's 3.5 years after the rapture of the church. Ezekiel 38:15 records this war. And you shall come from your place out of the north parts, you and many people with you. In other words, Russia is going to bring about 10 nations with them to come against Israel in the latter days. The latter days are right now. Ezekiel prophesied that the invading armies would come to Israel from the far north. The far north is not Turkey, it's Russia.
Putin has made it clear that if Israel and the U.S. attack Iran, Russia will fight with Iran. In response to Netanyahu's speech, former President Trump posted on Truth Social for America to wipe Iran off the face of the earth if he's assassinated. Israel is committing the biggest genocide ever witnessed in real time, and while the majority of humanity is uniting against it, the U.S. government and its evangelical influence is making it all possible.
Bible prophecy always begins and ends with Israel. The countdown to Armageddon has begun, and our only hope is that Jesus will return soon to take his children home. Though today's global powers make every attempt to establish binding agreements with other nations, God will have the final say. The end of the world is coming, and there's nothing we can do to stop it.
Reporting for InfoWars, this is Greg Reese.